So we had a question over here that came in from Jess from Waukegan, who says, there's crime everywhere, but what spot would be the most safest one in Oahu to live in? So the big topic here is crime safe, crime free, etc. And we'll talk about Oahu first. Scott, where would you go? Where would you say to Jess, who wants to live in the safest place?
Safest place on the island's probably going to be Hawaii Lower Ridge. And I jokingly say that because it's a gated community, and then there's a gated community within the gated community. So I don't know if that's to keep the riffraff in or to keep the riffraff out. But I mean, obviously, gated community is going to be like that. But I look at it as kind of from a socioeconomic standpoint. The more high net worth neighborhoods are probably going to be the safer ones. That East Oahu stretch from Diamond Head to Hawaii Kai is going to be the most consistent neighborhoods, as far as nicer neighborhoods, safer neighborhoods. And then, if you get into Honolulu, now you're getting into an urban core area where you get a mix of, types of housing and things. So it's going to change a good amount, but I would say Diamond Head to Hawaii Kai, those give you your most consistent neighborhoods as far as, quality, safety, good environment to raise kids, good schools, the whole 9 yards.
One of the things that I think, as you were saying this, Scott, what kind of occurred to me was, the relative safety of Hawaii to other places on the mainland. My gut, and I don't have any statistics to back this up, but my gut tells me that, relatively speaking, well, I know for a fact when I first came here from Chicago and everybody said, "Oh man, stay out of Kalihi. Kalihi's like this bad neighborhood." And I'm like, dude, you have no idea what bad neighborhood means. You have absolutely no, let me tell you what a bad neighborhood means. You have, getting shot at while you're at the stoplight is what a bad neighborhood means. In Chicago, the thing was like, if you're going through a bad neighborhood, first of all, the cops will tell you this is legendary. The cops will say, "Don't stop at the red light." So what are you doing stopping at a red light? And you never, ever stop at a red light near the curb. You're never stop at so this is what bad neighborhood means. We don't have that in Hawaii at all.
There's not a single neighborhood that I feel uncomfortable going into here on Oahu. And I used to live in Kalihi for a little while. And
so did I.
I had some of my best, nicest neighbors were my neighbors in Kalihi.
Yeah, I absolutely loved it. So the topic is sort of safety. Let's kind of run up. So Heidi, what if this was a question for Maui, and that question being, where's a safe place? How would you kind of judge Maui? Again, Hawaii is much safer than the mainland, but overall, Heidi, what would be like the safest place in Maui that you would guide someone towards?
Maui overall is pretty safe. I would say some kind of planned gated community might be your safest community versus being right in town, like downtown Lahaina or Wailuku. But most of my friends and clients and people that live in these places, they do not lock their doors. They don't lock their cars, which that just baffles me because I lived in Chicago for a while. I get in my car and lock the door right away. But I think it's more like what I find with people, it's more a comfort level of the neighborhood. And as you get to know people and have that community, you feel safer too. It's feeling comfortable in a new place. Now, actual crime, I don't have any statistics available. Some buyers do look up, you can look up a website of registered sex offenders. Some buyers look that up. But there's no neighborhoods that I could think of that are, really terrible or unsafe. It's more just a comfort level of where you feel comfortable living.
Yeah, that's actually even a better question, and kind of Scott had brought this up. So Heidi, is there any place on Maui where you would feel unsafe? Yep. See?
No. And I've definitely felt unsafe in like other big cities on the mainland in certain areas, but on Maui, there's nowhere I'd feel scared to be. But
Heidi, I forgot that you too were in Chicago. Do you remember? I'm sure you remember the legendary stories of don't stop at the red lights when going through the bad neighborhoods, right?
I didn't know about that, but there were definitely neighborhoods that there is a lot of crime in Chicago, and that you might not feel safe. I don't feel that way on Maui.
Yeah.
I mean, just I think anywhere you have to use caution. I mean, but in general, I think compared to especially living in Chicago, it's very safe.
Yeah, especially now, Chicago just like doesn't count as like what Chicago is going on now. As someone who was born in that place, I'm sad to see what's occurred. Anyway, Dylan, where would you say is the safest spot, on the Big Island?
I'm of the same mind. I mean, I don't think there's anywhere that's unsafe. One thing that helps you be safe is it doesn't really matter the neighborhood you're in, but it matters kind of who your neighbors are, right? In my old house, I had 2 retirees in the cul-de-sac. My neighbor across the street was a policeman. Like, I literally could just leave piles of money in my garage open and nobody would ever take it, because there was somebody in the yard doing yard work or walking around or whatever at all times. And so as long as you're friends with everybody, they're always gonna look out for you. And like anytime, I had my cousin stop by one time and drop something off, and I immediately got text messages from my neighbors saying, "Hey, there's somebody in your driveway, with a box," and it was a car they didn't recognize. But on the flip side of that, I'll tell you a personal story about my father-in-law recently got his truck stolen from his driveway, and they live in a really safe neighborhood. But for 30 years, he's parked his truck in his driveway with the keys in it. So there must have been some stupid kids that were in the neighborhood, maybe looking in cars, trying to, see if there were any valuables or whatever. But since there were keys in the truck, they drove away with it. And immediately, that's a cool thing about the world today, small town and social media, is immediately the word went out on social media to look for, and the truck was kind of a unique truck. And I think my wife had 100 shares on her Facebook post, and everybody knew about it, right? I mean, everybody was on the lookout for this truck. So quickly the truck turned up. Like within 12 hours, these kids figured out that this is probably not a good idea, and just abandoned it near a grocery store near the house, and we found it. But the funny part of that story was that there was, so many people knew about it that one of my wife's friends' husbands was driving home, and he passed what he thought was the truck. So he immediately U-turns and follows this truck 10 miles back into Kailua. He was up kind of where we live, follows this truck into the Ross parking lot, and then parks next to the guy and gets out and starts walking towards the truck. And the guy gets out of the truck and says, "Hey, this is my truck. I promise this is my truck. I know everybody's looking for it. This is my truck. It's not the stolen truck." Because I guess this guy's had been confronted several times that day already, because everybody in town was on the lookout for this truck.
Oh my God, Dylan, that has got to be the best story.
So this is a bad place to be a criminal. Like really, really, tough place to be a criminal because of the small knit community and everybody looking out for each other. So,
man, Dylan, that has got to be the best stolen truck story I have ever heard. And as you're saying this, I'm just imagining myself that these, let's just say, kids stole the car. I just imagine these kids who are all over social media themselves, right, are probably on Facebook saying, "Hey, dude, man, look, everyone's kind of sharing that we just stole the car. Dump this damn thing. Hurry up quick, man. There's like 10,000 views on this thing." I can just imagine that conversation. Easy to see that conversation. So we're talking about go ahead, Scott.
Well, and I would say goes back to a little bit about the community here. It's like you don't want to be a criminal. If you are, you end up getting shunned quite a bit from the community, and there's consequences to your behavior here, which goes back to not only why it's so safe, but how we're a community that looks out for each other.
It's definitely the Islander, definitely the Islander way. And I think it's a lot of sociological kind of aspects of this. I think a large part of it is because we are on an island. It is a closed space. There is a very, very, literally a very small population, if you really think about it, tiny population relative to the size. It's closed. You can't get off the island. There's all kinds of reasons, but it's been culturally ingrained for since the beginning of time, really here, that we have to kind of care for each other to survive. Tom popped in a quick question, Scott, about what about Kailua? We're talking about safety. Anything in Kailua that's no, right?
I mean, it's you could lump Kailua into that east
Oahu kind of
mirrors that east Oahu.
Yeah. So Kinaya, this is a great share. "I dropped a Louis Vuitton wallet in Waikiki and someone turned it in." Well, and that's in Waikiki. That's in Waikiki, where you've got if there's going to be any kind of petty theft going on because of tourists, unsuspecting tourists, etc., it's going to be in Waikiki. So